Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's COVID-19 live town hall focused on your health and safely reopening our economy. My name is Erica, your moderator on the call. There's a lot happening again this week, and we know you have many questions. Your Douglas County Commissioners, Roger Partridge, Laura Thomas, and Abe Layden are live and ready to take your questions. Also joining on the phone to answer your questions are Dr. John Douglas and Melissa Sager from the Tri-County Health Department. Press *3 on your phone keypad at any time if you would like to ask a question. Lots of questions are already coming in here, and commissioners, let's just go ahead and get started with two of the biggest questions that we've been hearing about, which has been weddings, graduations, and other situations as well. And again, just *3 really quick before we address these questions if you would like to get into the queue. All right, let's go to an online question. This one is for Commissioner Layden. Commissioner Layden, they say, I have a graduating senior in Douglas County, and I hear we might be getting a variance from the state so that our kids can have an actual graduation ceremony. Can you share more about this? Commissioner, go ahead.
I absolutely can, and that's a wonderful question. You know, we're continuing to see this marginal decrease in deaths and hospitalizations, although we are so incredibly thankful for the wonderful data that has been provided to us on almost a daily basis from Tri-County Health. And, you know, at this point, we've heard from a lot of different industry groups, nonprofits, and certainly the schools. One of the comments was, you know, we have seniors that have worked so hard over the last several years. Their families would love to acknowledge their accomplishments and recognize them in this important time. Is it possible to do an in-person and live graduation ceremony? So very thankfully, Tri-County Health was able to have a conversation with this Board of County Commissioners as well as the school district stakeholders and private school stakeholders about what a live in-person graduation might look like. And I'm really pleased that thanks to the incredible work of Douglas County staff and the staff of the other organizations, a variance application was submitted to CDPHE on June 5th so that high school graduation ceremonies could be conducted. Now, within these applications, there certainly are a series of public health parameters, and I'm not sure if Dr. Douglas would like to go into that with more detail, but continuing to think about the amount of people that would attend, social distancing, making sure that people are using hand sanitizer and potentially using face coverings as needed to ensure that the transmission doesn't occur. But we did ask for an expedited review of that variance application from the state, and we're looking forward to hearing any moment.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. Next, let's go to a live caller. We have Kim Ross, and this will go to any of the commissioners that would like to respond. Kim, you're live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, hi. Good evening, everyone. And I just wanted to reach out and say thank you. I'm an owner of a fitness business, Spenga in Highlands Ranch, and thank you so much for being diligent and doing careful opening of our businesses. Thanks also for these communication sessions. I did hear here early in the closings that the perception of gyms, as we were called, was that these are places where many people would come in and they'd be exposed to lack of social distancing and touching shared equipment. And thank you for listening to us and my peers in the fitness industry as we explained how fitness could be conducted safely in the COVID environment. You know, and as an example, in our business, our members can come in, they can do 20 minutes of spins separated by 6 feet, share it using only one bike, no equipment sharing, moving to 20 minutes of strength, never sharing the same strength equipment, and always separated by 8 feet, you know, led safely by a great instructor, and then finishing off with 20 minutes of yoga in a very good separation in their own personal mats and so on. And you listen to how we and other fitness businesses can conduct fitness safely. So thank you for listening, and thank you for putting those factors into the variance. I have 20 employees at Spenga in Highlands Ranch that are happy to be back to work, and I have hundreds of members that are just thrilled to come back and for their own physical and mental well-being. It was a great move for our economy and for the health of our citizens and our employees. So thank you so much for all of that, and especially to Commissioner Thomas for listening carefully to our ideas.
So Kim, I'd like to thank you because you emailed me, you emailed all of us, and I intercepted that email. And although you were a little panicked, you were very clear on that you could open safely. And you started the dialogue, and we went back and forth and worked with Tri-County Health because you told us what you could do to get your business back open safely for your customers. And that's what this has been all about in Douglas County, is how we can do this safely. And you absolutely were an industry leader in this. So thank you for everything you did to help us get gyms, small and large, open.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's now go to our other hot topic, which is weddings. We have an online question, and Commissioner Thomas, if you could answer this one. This question says, my fiance and I are still hoping to get married this summer, even though we know we will have to adjust our plans. So can you share more details and an update on the Douglas County variants that would affect our wedding planning?
And this is another question that we've gotten so many from panic brides, and I can understand how they're panicked. But this afternoon, we just got great news that the variants that we had filed for large gatherings, which includes weddings, has been approved by Tri-County Health, and it will be forwarded to the State Health Department this afternoon. The State Health Department has told us that they are hoping to only need a week to review all of these plans. So we're very hopeful that by the middle of June, we'll have some good news for our brides. And overall, what the variant says is that 50% of the posted capacity of a venue will be allowed, up to 175 people for inside. If you're using an outside venue, you can have 250 people. The recommendation is 28 square feet per guest. But I can tell you that, again, we've had lots of venue owners reaching out to us, telling us how they can put touchless features in place, how they can have the buffets will be manned, or it will be plated dinners, that there won't be anybody who's recycling drink glasses or anything like that. And absolutely, again, our business owners are going to be able to safely provide venues so our beautiful brides can have their weddings. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And again, if you would like to be a part of this conversation today and ask your question, press *3 on your telephone keypad. You can get in the queue and ask anyone one of your questions. All right, we have Mike. He's live on the phone from Castle Rock. Mike, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, hi, this is Mike Polhemus, and I'm the pastor of the Rock Church here in Castle Rock. And I don't really have a question, but I just want to say a huge thank you to Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Partridge and Commissioner Layden, and also to Dr. Douglas, just for their hard work in getting the variance request approved by the state, and also for the suppression plan that they put together to make this all happen. For churches, this was a huge deal, and we had some county commissioners that are just, I have to say, amazing in the way that they operated in the midst of a crisis type of situation, coming to us and saying, hey, we want to come to you and ask you how best to open here, or what can we put into the variance. Instead of trying to tell you or tell us what to do, they were saying, hey, we want to work with you. And so we got to work with them, come up with the language for the variance, and submit this to the state. And so I just think they have done an amazing job in getting things open. I just say we have 3 commissioners that actually truly love the people they serve. And so
All right, it looks like we lost Mike. But go ahead, commissioners, if you'd like to respond to that.
Well, Erica, I don't know if Mike is still on the phone. I hope he is, because, it was an incredible honor that you gave me, Mike, as well as all of the churches in Douglas County to host a meeting with you all, Tri-County Health, our Douglas County staff. But really, all three of us have such a passion for ensuring that our houses of worship are open and remain open based upon the wonderful health data that we're continuing to see. We know that for the mental health and spiritual health of our citizens, 370,000 people in Douglas County, being able to go to their houses of worship and have fellowship and spend time praying and connecting with their God is incredibly important. It's certainly important to me and my colleagues. So, Mike, you remain and are always an inspiration to us. Thank you for praying for us as well, and thank you for taking the time to call in.
Wonderful. Now let's go to Dr. John Douglas. And before we do, if you are just now joining us and you would like to ask a question, please press *3. That's *3 on your telephone keypad, and you can get in the queue to ask a question. All right, let's go to Dr. John Douglas. He's going to share the most recent Douglas County COVID-19 public health data. The good news that creates the conditions for Douglas County to continue moving forward towards reopening our economy. Dr. John Douglas, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's great to be with everybody today. And let me just add my congratulations to our community who's been so innovative around gyms and weddings and other things, because honestly, it's your ingenuity of figuring out what it is to run these facilities safely that's really made it possible. I do want to, well, it's that plus Douglas County has actually got great statistics. We do monitor very carefully statistics. Commissioner Layden mentioned earlier there are certain parameters we follow for variance processes. These include numbers of cases, numbers of hospitalization, amount of testing, and hospital capacity. We want to be sure that as we begin to gear up other things in hospitals that kind of got neglected for a while, that hospitals are ready and able to take care of any surge in cases. And those parameters all really look good in Douglas County, in spite of the fact that we've had increased testing in the county and we're trying to scale up testing everywhere. Cases have remained really quite low. Even more importantly, because testing numbers can be artifactually inflated by simply doing more testing, hospitalization, which shouldn't be influenced by that, has remained really low. And again, that's good news, not only because that's probably a more reliable indicator, but also because, frankly, those are the people that are sickest. That's the part of COVID that's really bad, and that's been really low in Douglas County. So we do look very carefully. We continue to learn better ways of displaying our data from people like Commissioner Layden, who uses it very regularly. And I'm very happy to say the parameters look really impressive. I do want to say that we monitor in part to be careful. We are hearing, of course, that some states aren't faring as well as Colorado, and certainly some counties aren't faring as well as Douglas County. For example, in the last week or so, 10 states have reported increases in hospitalizations. Two of those are not far from us, Utah and Arizona, which isn't to say that's going to happen here, but it is to say we want to be cautious. We think at best maybe 3, 4, 5% of us are infected or have been infected with COVID, meaning that the remaining 95% or so could be susceptible to another wave of infection. I'm a member of the National Vaccine Advisory Committee, and we had one of our triannual meetings yesterday, hearing a lot about COVID vaccines. There's a fantastic amount of work underway, but it's pretty clear that we in general in the country are going to have to proceed cautiously until we get a vaccine. And I think the kind of cautious work that we've heard about through, again, those two examples of weddings and gyms is a great example of what it looks like to try to balance our community life, whether it's businesses or community events such as weddings and church services, with public health. I think is really important and really the challenge. I will say that as we go forward, Tri-County's big focus over and above monitoring is going to be enhancing testing, interview of cases, and contacting those folks that have been exposed to cases, something we call contact tracing or contact notification. Secondly, we're going to be really focused on getting on top of any outbreaks in stores or long-term care facilities, because that's where things can burn brightly and fast. Thirdly, we're going to be, particularly for our vulnerable citizens, trying to identify strategies to help protect them through what's called social distancing. Again, we've been doing that for all of society. We'd like to do it just for those people that are actually at greatest risk. That includes the use of face coverings in places where social distancing can't be allowed or isn't really possible, because we do think that prevents transmission. And then finally, I want to put a bug in everybody's ear. This is a great year to get a flu vaccine when it becomes available in the fall, because there's a lot of concern that flu, even if it's just a normal year, could make hospital capacity more daunting, especially if COVID comes back. And for any of you that are parents, I want to put a bug in your ear about routine childhood immunizations. Those fell behind as we stayed at home. We're trying to play catch-up ball on that. The last thing we, as a health department, want to see with COVID as a potential is, let's say, a measles outbreak. So just other things we can do that keep our community, as you all know, the number one healthiest community in the country. We'd like for that track record to continue. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we are seeing a lot more questions coming in again about weddings. So if you are just now joining the call and you missed our explanation from Commissioner Thomas, Commissioner Thomas, if you don't mind, can you please say that information again on what's going on with weddings right now?
Sure, Erica, I'm happy to. Again, our variance request today was approved by Tri-County Health. The next step is to the State Health Department, and the State Health Department has told us they are hoping to get these variances approved in a week. So we certainly are hoping that Wednesday of next week on our next town hall, we have good news. And what we have submitted is that 50% of the posted capacity code for each room in the venue is what will be allowed, up to a total of 175 people for inside events. If the venue is an outside event, that total is increased to 250 people. Of course, the goal is to do as much outside as possible, but we understand Colorado weather too, right? And we have listed that we recommend that masks be used when you are seated at a table. You don't need to wear your mask, and touchless things such as going into bathrooms or using the sinks in the bathrooms will be touchless. So we're asking to reduce the number of opportunities to touch things. But the biggest news is the 175 and the 250 based on 50% of occupancy. And we know that the event managers are really excited about these opportunities. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner. Our next question is an online question about the Douglas County Fair. And Commissioner Partridge, if you can respond to this one, they're asking, my neighbor told me that the commissioners are working on a plan for the Douglas County Fair and Rodeo to be held this year. Is that true? Commissioner Partridge, go ahead.
Thank you, Erica. And whoever your neighbor was correct. So we are very actively working on a variance for the Douglas County Fair and Rodeo. And so easy answer first is yes, we will have a fair and rodeo. No doubt it's going to look different. We are working very actively with the Fair Board, our fairground staff, and with Tri-County Health to really put something together that will, what we're calling kind of a throwback fair, because that takes you back to somewhat more of a simpler process. We know our fair is over 100 years old, so we really want to honor our Western and agricultural heritage and really give the notice to our 4-H kids and 4-H families who are working so hard throughout the whole year to be able to demonstrate their skills, demonstrate what they can do with raising animals, performing a project. And also we want to be able to have a rodeo. We're working very hard to get that done. There's going to be a challenge, no doubt, because it's a very large gathering, but it's a very important thing because rodeo isn't just an entertainment. It is a livelihood for the stock contractors who provide the stock. It's a livelihood for the cowboys and cowgirls. And it also is very important for those cowboys and cowgirls in what's called the rodeo circuit to be able to gain those points. So we know how important it is to rodeo. We know how important it is to 4-H families and the 4-H children. So the answers, we're working very hard. We're very hopeful. And it will complement Tri-County Health. Jennifer Lugwood was with us last Friday. We did a whole walkthrough of our fair and rodeo grounds and had some great ideas. So we're looking forward to be able to submit that variance very soon.
Thank you, Commissioner. And also, again, if you're just joining us, star three. Star three, if you would like to ask a question, you can just press it on your telephone pad. Next, we have an online question from Ghislaine, and this is for Dr. Douglas. She says, this virus will be around for a very long time. We will need long-term ability to test all of us fairly frequently and trace our contacts if we get sick. When will these functions be available in Douglas County?
So you're absolutely correct. I hope long is not forever. I heard a lot about new vaccine products yesterday, and there's a huge amount in the pipeline. But it is absolutely true that we're going to have a sustained period of time where we have to live with the kind of careful stuff that we've heard about on this call today. Douglas County's testing has been increasing week by week. We are not yet countywide at the target level that was set by the state health department. But honestly, I think I want to see more testing, certainly more availability. And our team is looking for pockets in the county, particular populations or communities or occupational groups who might not have sufficient access to testing. So we are trying to scale that up. But I think given the low rate of transmission right now, we're not in such a bad place. We've been working very aggressively with Tri-County staff to develop contact tracing capacity. We've developed a new database to allow us to enter that data, new training. We've got volunteers being trained this week, another crop next week. We've been working very effectively with all three sets of our commissioners, including Douglas County, to try to figure out how we can begin to hire contractors to do the work. So I think that we're really moving along in a very effective way in what, as you point out, is going to be a component of prevention that we'll need to be using for a while.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas.
Great.
And we have another online question for you as well, Doctor. This is Kenneth, and he says, I usually quarantine all packaging that comes into the house for 72 hours just to be safe. If I have food products delivered that require refrigeration or freezing, how does the cold temperature affect that 72-hour wait time?
Well, Kenneth, first, I'm glad to hear that you're being attentive to that. It's easy to kind of forget about stuff like that. I do want to emphasize that transmission of infection from inanimate objects, and that would include food, is very likely to be a low risk kind of situation. Having said that, while the cold in the fridge doesn't really kill the virus, simply sitting it around and allowing it to dry out, and by the way, refrigeration does dehydrate products, is a good way to clear the virus. So I think, frankly, refrigeration for several hours should be sufficient. And then to the extent that you're putting food in the freezer, the freeze process probably even more effectively inactivates the virus. So I think that really minimal time in the fridge and the freezer ought to be sufficient from a food care perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you, Doctor. Let's go to a live caller. This is William, and he is in Lone Tree. William, you're live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Well, hi, Erica. Thanks for doing such a great job moderating. My name is William, and I own a restaurant in Lone Tree in Douglas County with about 100 employees. I'm getting back to that, thankfully. And would just like to give a shout out and tremendous thank you to our Douglas County Commissioners Layden, Thomas, and Commissioner Partridge, all of their staff, Tri-County Health, Executive Director Dr. Douglas, and Deputy Director Jennifer Ludwig and their staff for just doing a heroic job and effort in securing a variance for Douglas County to open our restaurant safely. They worked extremely hard and they were very reasonable, I think, in their approach. And just to see our commissioners work so well with our Tri-County Health Department and with all of us out here in the restaurant sector was really pleased us, and just want to really say thanks for the hard work to everyone. You'd be hard pressed to find a group like this that worked any harder. So just wanted to pass that along to everyone and tell you all thank you.
So William, thank you for calling in. Let me just add that on Memorial Day weekend, I was able to get a table at Sierra. And I've been there again since, and you do a marvelous job. But what I was really impressed with was the really positive attitude of your staff. They were amazing, and everybody in the restaurant looked like they were having so much fun. So it was really wonderful to have that experience after so many months of not being able to sit in a restaurant.
Well, William,
thank you.
I'm so grateful that you called in, and I'm going to echo those sentiments. I had an opportunity to celebrate our 18-year wedding anniversary to my bride, Kimberly. And, your culinary expert, James, came to our table and shared with us how special it was to him to be back, to be working, to be connecting with staff, and to be able to serve the community in Lone Tree. Lone Tree is my district, and I know Sierra well. I'm very thankful for all of the restaurants that you represent. And I'm glad that you reached out to myself, to Commissioner Thomas, and many others. Again, that secret sauce seemed to be your ability to connect with all of the restaurants, for Tri-County Health to join us in that conversation, and for our amazing staff to be able to cobble together recommendations that really you put together. I think it's a bad idea for elected officials to try to tell restaurants what works best for their industry, since you've been dealing with food safety for decades. And we're glad that the state agreed. So I really appreciate your encouraging words, and I'm glad you called in tonight. Good to hear from you, William.
Great, thank you. All right, let's go to our next live caller. We have Susan in Parker. She has a question about graduation. There are lots of other questions about graduation. So thank you, Susan, for your call. You can go ahead and ask your question live. Go ahead.
Hi there. I'm a parent of a 2020 graduate, and I know you went ahead and you submitted the variance request for graduation to hopefully happen the week of June 22nd. My question is the emails that the parents have received has said that this variance has gone in, but it says a traditional commencement event with a limited number of family members in attendance. And I was wondering what that kind of variance plan looks like. I mean, for a family, you're thinking of grandparents and maybe aunts and uncles and siblings. That's traditionally at past graduation ceremonies. So I'm wondering if this variance is something like you're thinking about maybe just graduates only and parents only, or a certain number of ticket system, or just any kind of additional information you might be able to provide about that variance. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And did you say your name was Tara? Did I hear that right? Maybe the moderator can help me, but that's a wonderful question, and I'm so glad you asked it. Again, we did submit the variance application with Tri-County Health through staff on June 5th. And to give you some more specifics, really each school must submit a written plan to Tri-County Health Department at least 1 week prior to the proposed ceremony that's going to affirm compliance with the recommendations in our plan, and then propose any additional or alternative methods to protect the health of participants. But the plan should be sent to COVID Business Recovery at tchd.org with the subject graduation plan submission. And the hope, at least in part of the variance application that we submitted, our recommendations included making sure that there was a fully virtual option in the event, that ceremonies be held outside with weather contingency plans for transition to virtual only as needed. The hope that it would be performed with minimal staff to manage students and flow of ceremonies. In terms of groups, really asking for smaller groups of less than 10 graduates at a time up to the presentation stage. And then in terms of length, making sure they don't exceed maybe more than an hour and a half. I think I mentioned earlier, but the continued encouragement is to keep 6 feet of social distancing at all times when entering and exiting the ceremony, and then consider staggered arrivals and dismissal. The other thing about guests, you asked specifically about relatives and family. I think that's a really important question. And part of our recommendations are that the guests are permitted, but that schools should consider capacity limitations and then restrict the number of event tickets to just ensure that the social distancing can be achieved at all times. Now, I have to say that, this seems to change hour by hour, if not day by day. And so as we continue to see wonderful numbers and certainly the approval of our larger gatherings to the 175 and 250, perhaps more can be done. And we realize that it requires some quick planning. It requires adaptability for you to be nimble and get those plans in early. I will say that it's been an honor to work with the Douglas County School District, which has already submitted a series of plans and potential options for them based upon what might be approved. And the private schools have as well. So really the private schools, the choice or charter schools, as well as the neighborhood schools are fairly prepared, if not very prepared, to anticipate what this might look like. But mid-June is going to be here before we know it. And we just really appreciate your patience with this process as we work to be able to celebrate your distinguished graduates. Thank you for that great question.
Great, thank you so much. And that was Susan. Thank you, Susan, for that question. Okay, next we have an online question from Pam, and she wants to know about garage sales. She wants to know if she can have a garage sale as well with other homeowners and that they could all get together. So Commissioner Melissa, would you mind responding to that one?
Not at all. It's a fantastic question. Yard sales are permitted. The restriction on those is that you should stay socially distant at all times, and you don't want to have any group gathered more than 10 folks. And so while your neighbor can do their yard sale as well, you want them down in their yard as opposed to right next to you, and you want to make sure that all gatherings are spread out. And so the more you can spread out those tables for your yard sale, the more customers can spread themselves out while they engage in that activity. And just be aware of touching things and wiping things off, and maybe even providing some hand sanitizer on your table, but that activity is allowed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melissa. Next, we have an online question, but before we go to that, let's mention again, if you've joined the call or if you have a question and you would like to ask it live, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad. That will get you into the queue. Okay, this online question is for Commissioner Layden, and they say, I know that the state is now allowing pools to be open with restrictions. Are there any variance requests in that would allow them to operate more fully than they are able to under the state guidelines? Commissioner Layden, are you there?
Yes, I am. I was just waiting for you to tell me when to go. Thank you.
Give you the prompt.
No problem. Yeah, no. What a timely question. I think one of the toughest things for parents. I'm a father of 3 young kids. And probably the toughest thing is telling parents that they have to stay inside as the weather heats up and that they can't use their pools. So obviously now we are in a rubric where, at least for outdoor community pools, there are increasing possibilities of capacity beyond 50% or 50 people, whichever is fewer. And that's what's currently allowed under the state's public health orders. And I know many of you are enjoying that. We have certainly been part of that conversation and talking fairly actively about the need to open pools. I'm hoping that Tri-County Health and our experts can verify our understanding. I know we shared it on last week's call that coronavirus has a really hard time surviving in a pool in chlorine. And so the issue really is around that physical distancing outside of the pool. So Douglas County is preparing a variance request that, if approved would allow higher capacity. The current draft under review by our partners would allow as many as 175 people or 50% capacity, whichever is lower. So we anticipate submitting that request this week. Then both Tri-County Health Department and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment will need to review that. But once we hear back, we will immediately let you know. We know that's on the forefront of your minds.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Next, we have an online question from Annette, and this is for Commissioner Thomas. Annette says, I would like to know when libraries and movie theaters are going to open, even at half capacity. Keeping things closed when the protests are going on seems ridiculous. It's like closing the barn door after the cow has gotten out. Thank you, Annette, for that question. And Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you, Erica. Annette, I was on a phone call today with the libraries, and their board has authorized them to open on June 29th. Even if we get the approval from the state next week, they're going to need that much time to get everything set up and ready to go. And so I would be circling June 29th on my calendar so that I could go visit the library. Thank you, Erica.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and take a break for a poll here. Our question is, have you participated on previous Douglas County live town hall events? You can answer by just pressing this number on your keypad. Press 1 if no, this is my first time participating in these events. 2 if yes, I have participated on one or a couple previously. Press 3 if you've participated on several events. Again, it's 1 for no, this is my first. 2 for yes, 1 or 2. 3 for yes, I have participated on several. All right, let's go to another live caller. We have Kim, and she is in Castle Rock, and she has a question for Melissa Sager. Kim, you're live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I was calling about, I had some questions on the daycares. With a lot of the small ones closing, there's parents that need daycare. So I wanted to see if the rules were still the same or if they changed where pickup and drop off is curbside only, or has that extended to where they could take them in and take them back out? And then also for the new parents looking for new daycares, are they allowed to tour those? And I'm talking about the small daycares, like the in-home daycares.
Yeah, that's a really fantastic question. So the issue of curbside pickup, the guidance is for child cares to implement that curbside pickup and drop off to the greatest extent possible. It enables them to limit the number of people coming into their facility, which we're trying to do to the greatest extent. So it's kind of that remote ability within child care centers, that one area where they can limit the number of people coming into the facility and making contact. So that's recommended, again, to the greatest extent possible. It is not required, but it's going to depend on your facility. If the facility is capable of implementing that, we hope that they continue to do so. For a facility where that may be they may be less able to implement, it is not required. To tour a facility is going to be facility dependent as well. So it's going to depend if that facility can implement hours where you can come during off hours to tour the facility, again, limiting any contact, any additional contact with the kiddos that can be avoided. But it's not a restricted activity. We just ask it to be controlled very tightly to ensure limited contact.
Wonderful, thank you. Our next question is an online question for Commissioner Partridge. And they say, I've heard that many places around Colorado are seeing huge increases in the number of visitors to open space areas. Is Douglas County experiencing that? Commissioner Partridge, go ahead.
Yes, you bet, Erica. The caller is right on. We have seen a great increase in our open space and trails use for a couple of reasons. First of all, we know that it's one of the very popular things for residents around the whole Front Range. We've known that even before the COVID-19 crisis, but since then it's been a phenomenal increase in use. Not just here, we know it's occurring in others, but just to speak to what we have over 17,000 acres of public open space and miles of trails along with that. So we are very well positioned for, as the governor put in his new order, to get outdoors and enjoy it. Our residents have, and we know there's residents from the area that have also. So just a comment though, if you would like to use it and any of our open space and trails and have a less congested time, come early, come late in the day, and certainly come on weekdays. That's when you will probably have a little more privacy and certainly less crowded. And if you would visit dcoutdoors.org, you can find out more about our open space properties. So again, that is dcoutdoors.org. And I just want to tell you, one of my favorite places is the Greenland open space, because it is such a wide open area. Not only do you have that on the west side of I-25, that is our open space. Across the highway is Harmony Ranch, which is not our open space, but it is an open area. So you get to see a lot of Colorado and less of any congestion. So please visit the dcoutdoors.org.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner Partridge. Okay, we have two online questions that are very similar. It looks like they both want to have a wedding in their backyard. And that's Cheryl and Michael. Thank you for your questions. Cheryl says, we want to have about 20 to 30 people in our backyard for this wedding. What do you think? Melissa Sager, can you go ahead and answer that question for us?
Absolutely. So under the new order, the state has created an exception for limited gatherings for life right events, which would include a wedding. So that activity can occur in your backyard. Is perfectly fine. And we'd encourage you to reach out to us with your plan so we can just chat through protections in those situations. And you can reach Tri-County. I will give you our Business Reopening Task Force email address. It is covidbusinessrecovery@tchd.org. And you can reach out through email and we'll get back to you with a bit of information on how to stay safe.
Great, thank you, Melissa. Next, let's go to another online question. This one is for Commissioner Thomas. Are there other variance requests that the commissioners are planning to submit to the state? Have any others been submitted? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. Today, we also submitted a request for bowling alleys. We had been working on one for theaters, but we were struggling to get theater industry people to work with us because we need them to tell us what can be accomplished. So we're now working on theaters. I think the most popular requests we're getting are from estheticians. Those are the people who do facials. And I get at least one email a day from that industry, and they're very frustrated. Their customers are very frustrated. So we are definitely working on the estheticians for spas and salons. You know, there's been some discussion. The governor allowed up to 25 on a team for adult or youth sports, 25 people on a field. So you could have some on each side and referees. We're waiting a little bit to see how that works out, and we will be refining that, as well as pools and playgrounds. We're waiting to see how those work, but we definitely are ready to do more with those two entities as well. And if any of you have other things you have suggestions for that you need done, email us, and we're happy to take a look and contact you to figure out what we need to do to help you. Thank you, Erica.
Great, thank you so much. And I have a statement coming in online from David Ray, and it's regarding, he's hearing all the questions about graduations. And he says he is the president of DCSD BOE, and he wants to let all the callers know that are inquiring about graduations that the plan has been submitted to TCHD on Monday, and it allows for 2 guests to come to the graduation per graduate. In addition, they are going to be live streaming the ceremonies. So I hope that helps for anyone listening right now. Next, let's go to Ron. He is live on the phone in Highlands Ranch. And this question is for Melissa Sager. Ron, you're live. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, everybody. It seems that everybody calling in is concerned about what's going on. We're all trying to do our best in these difficult times. A question was asked earlier, but the piece that I'm curious about is with all that we're doing, and we're all trying so hard to stay safe, what are your thoughts, comments, and what is it that we can do or you all can do to help with the folks who are protesting and rioting that are not social distancing? And it seems that there's no care on that side. So I'd just like someone maybe to comment on that piece of all of this.
Absolutely. From Tri-County, we are working on our communications out to folks to ensure that folks are wearing masks, using hand sanitizer, staying socially distant as possible during those activities. And it's similar to what we're doing with all businesses as risk increases and we have increased gathering. What protections can we put in place to keep folks as safe as possible? Because increased gathering, increased activity is risky, and just guiding folks on how to keep as safe as possible when engaging in any activities.
Great, thank you very much. And next, let's go to our second poll question. We'd like to make sure that you stay informed about what's happening in Douglas County. So if you would like to continue receiving information from the county, please press 1 on your phone right now. Again, that's just press 1 on your phone right now. All right, we have another question online, Cassidy, and this is for Commissioner Thomas. Cassidy wants to know, will the wedding variants apply to all other events as well, such as social events or charity events? Commissioner, go ahead.
That is absolutely correct. The other day I was doing a talk to some people and they asked me about weddings, and I said, well, funerals go along with weddings. And after I said that, everybody laughed and I realized what I had said. It's not what I meant, but in the same vein of social events. So weddings, funerals, charity events. We have even included a section for equestrian events in our gatherings. So if you're planning to have an equestrian event, we have included information for that in our special event venue. So thank you for reminding us that weddings and funerals are separate, but they are definitely social events. I know several people who have lost loved ones during this difficult time, and they are very much looking forward to being able to honor their loved ones live with all of their friends around. And so this is the opening that we've been waiting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I know we have a lot of questions about graduation this evening, but we are going to keep going because that seems to be a very hot topic. We have Melissa in Littleton. This question will be for Commissioner Abe Layden. Melissa, go ahead and ask your question live.
Hi, I know some of the questions have been answered. However, it says we proposed a modified version of in-person, and now they're saying so 2 people. So that would basically mean each parent is the only ones that could go to the in-person graduation. There was no talks in this about the variants of where this would be held at, as well as I think it's such a huge deal for our kids to actually have a graduation that they'll never be able to have, being that, people have been out in groups and the numbers have stayed so low. I don't feel like it's as big of a deal as everybody's making it out to be, but we can't, I think for me, I feel like we can't take something away from our kids, parents, family, and celebrating such a big time in their lives that they'll never get back because of something like this. But now saying, oh, we're proposing it, but we haven't heard back, and none of us knowing what's going on and when it's going to happen, how it's going to look, where it's going to be at. People have to schedule time off if it's going to be during the week and whatnot. So none of that information has been provided, and I'm just curious how that's going to work.
Well, Melissa, thank you so much for that question. And we share your frustration. I think in uncertain and unprecedented times, we have to be adaptable and we have to be nimble to these circumstances. And we're very thankful that Douglas County and certainly all of our partners in Douglas County, including the Douglas County School District, does as best as they possibly can in light of the circumstances to communicate. And I know they're very committed to communicating well with all of the students, staff, and parents that would be affected by these changes. The problem is we're waiting for answers just like you are. But rest assured that this Board of Douglas County Commissioners shares your philosophy that in light of the wonderful public health data that we're seeing, that there really is no reason that we as a county should not be more open, if not more entirely open, to allow for some of these particular events. Now, I say that cautiously because certainly we are receiving data from other states that are now seeing some surges and some spikes. As I mentioned earlier, we are reviewing and aggregating data on a daily basis with the public health experts. And so we have built in a somewhat nimble plan to be able to move forward or move back depending on what we see. Again, these are truly unprecedented times, but we hear you. We know that these ceremonies are incredibly important, and we want family and friends to gather and to be able to share that love and really celebrate these students. So thank you for that question, Melissa.
Erica, could I add a comment, please?
Of course, yes, go ahead.
This last question also talked about that there have been so many protesters out, and has there been a spike, or there hasn't been? And so what does this look like? I would just like to quickly talk about the incident on Mother's Day with the CNC Cafe. We've had a lot of questions that have been sent to us about that and wondering if there was any outbreak after that. A lot of us saw the video of lots of people in that restaurant very close. And I'm really pleased to let everybody know that we are 2 infection cycles away from that Mother's Day event. An infection cycle is 14 days, so we are 2 cycles, more than 28 days since. And I have asked Tri-County Health on 2 different phone calls if they have identified any kind of an outbreak that happened from those events at the CNC Cafe. And in both phone calls, they have told us no. So I think that gives us a little more encouragement to know that even though there were a lot of people there close together, there was no outbreak. And our message to you is that things are safe, and that is why the state health department is allowing Douglas County to have more and more freedom, more and more openings, because we are in such a good place here with our numbers. Thank you for that extra time, Erica.
Yes, of course. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay, let's go to an online question, which actually seems to be very popular, from David, and he wants to know about karaoke. Is karaoke allowed? He says he's seen it advertised at several local restaurants and just wants to know if it's okay. Melissa Sager, could you take that one?
Yes, absolutely. And it is one that keeps coming up. So currently, right now, karaoke is not permitted in the restaurant. We anticipate guidance from the state on entertainment within restaurants. Karaoke poses some unique risks as opposed to a band that may perform, and that includes that shared microphone that you're touching, as well as aerosol that's released from your mouth when you're singing. There's a lot of other issues with folks moving around within a restaurant. So in that restaurant space, we want folks sitting in one place, eating their meal, and then leaving. karaoke creates some movement in that space. So right now, it is not permitted, but we do anticipate guidance coming soon from the state.
Great, thank you, Melissa. All right, we are done with our questions this evening. Just a final reminder though, if your question wasn't answered tonight, we encourage you to visit douglas.co.us/citizenconnect to submit your question, and we will respond. Also, be sure to join us Monday, June 15th at 9:30 a.m. for another COVID-19 and older adults live town hall. Due to the tremendous participation in our previous older adults event, we are going to dedicate a full 90 minutes to answering questions about how older adults can stay healthy and safe as our economy reopens. Before we conclude our live town hall, we'd like to give your Douglas County Commissioners a few moments for final comments. So let's go to Commissioner Partridge first. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you again, everyone, to the listening audience. We really appreciate your involvement. It proves to us that you care, and certainly that there are hopefully questions that we've answered, giving you more comfort, giving you more information. Because one thing we have seen, the more informed individuals are, the more compliant they are. And that's one thing I really want to compliment again. I do this every time, but compliment the Douglas County residents who we have seen great compliance. And because of that, we see these low numbers. But it also may become they're prepared because they take care of their health. That does mean a lot, because the better you are going into any type of a harsh situation, the better you're going to come out of it. So thank you, Douglas County, for taking care of your health, taking care of your loved ones, being sensible and caring for all others. And again, we wish you good health and blessings.
Wonderful, thank you. And now let's go to Commissioner Laura Thomas.
Thank you, Erica. I'm going to dovetail on what my fellow Commissioner Roger Partridge just talked about, and it's about the health of our citizens. Douglas County has been ruled the first healthiest county in the entire country by two different surveys. The Robert Wood Johnson Foundation since 2011 has listed Douglas County as either 1 or 2 for the last 9 years. Right now we are number 1, as well as U.S. World News and Report. They have said that we are also the healthiest county in the state and the nation. So we started off in a better place. That's how we were able to show these numbers. So just to talk about a slide we saw earlier, there have only been 11 hospitalizations in the last 21 days in Douglas County. That's not to minimize the suffering that those 11 people are going through in the hospital, but let's remember there's 370,000 residents in this county. So there's no reason to be fearful. We have been told by our health departments how to keep safe, and it's time for our kids and our families to get back to living. And so thank you to all of you, and God bless.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. And now let's hear from Commissioner Layden. Go ahead.
Well, this being our 10th live town hall, it has been such an incredible honor to spend some time with you all face to face. Again, we work for you, not the other way around, but it's because, again, of this wonderful health data and your work that Douglas County is able to be more open. So we're receiving just this wonderful outpouring of excitement with regard to being able to go to places of worship and to be able to go to the gym and go to your favorite restaurant again, and maybe even go to the mall. My daughter, who's 14, was able to go to the mall this last weekend with her friends. And I'm sure many of you are able to do that as well. And so we share that excitement. We're going to continue to charge forward and work hard for each of you. And for all of the graduates out there, we are so proud of you, and we hope we have more good news to come. For all of the wonderful brides and grooms to be, we are also excited for you and hope that you can celebrate your commitment to each other very soon as well. So thank you for spending this time with us, and stay safe and be well out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Layden. And thank you, everyone. On behalf of Douglas County and the Tri-County Health Department, thank you for sharing your time with us, and we hope you'll join us again for future town halls. Be well, be blessed, and good night.